everybody, wake up, it's time for Stoner Morning Show. Sit back, relax, smoke them if you got them. And now, Stoner Morning Show.
Jonathan Kaplan, it's great seeing you and talking to you after a while. I mean, we've messaged a few times, I feel like, over the last few months.
And in the beginning, when people were more like lively at the novelty of being locked down, like I did some of your Instagram shows and things like. I mean, you and I go back to 2007. To
another number at the start of our ages.
Jesus, yeah. Yeah.
Pretty crazy. I don't have like a lot of... it just dawned on me recently that I don't have a lot of pictures in New York of me from high school and college. And if I saw those more, it probably would blow my mind more of like how much time has passed.
My sister. Yeah, my sister has some pictures from... It's got to be 2007, 2008, around the time you were doing Beyond Improdome, and of course you had no beard.
No.
And like everyone's faces look young. I mean, like my sister, like look at those pictures and I think she's a high school student. It's crazy.
Right.
Like,
I think Star and I thought you both were high school students when you first showed up.
Right. Yeah.
Which is a compliment. It was a compliment, you know.
No, totally. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, I know that you have been keeping. At least I don't know about lately, but over the last few months, I know you were sort of like out and about taking photos of nature and stuff. Are you still walking around?
100%. Like, you know, I live on Long Island. I live in Lindenhurst, so that's like a solid 40 minutes from the city.
Yeah.
But it's also 40 minutes from like the very rural areas of Long Island. And like since the pandemic started, you know, one of the things like for grading animals, I always like to shoot a walk and talk section in the middle. And at the start of the pandemic, where can I go where there's not going to be anybody? Because I don't want to see anybody. So I ended up starting to like really explore the parks and
like more of Long Island than you had ever seen.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
I've never this patch of time. I've gone to so many places that I've never been, and then like dug deeper. So there's so many different nice places. But then, of course, what it becomes is, it becomes like an outlet to get out of myself and go out and shoot. So like I still have been doing that.
That's good. Because I was in Mississippi for a while, and I remember specifically thinking, Jonathan has a bunch of outdoorsy photos. I feel like he must be pretty good.
Well, yeah. I mean, you know,
or at least I could see the effort behind the posts that you were like doing. You know, keeping yourself busy. You know,
my job that I lost during the pandemic, I was a photographer for 9 years.
Yeah.
Like a product photography, headshots. You know, the only reason I traveled, around the world doing stuff, but it was mostly to cover events. So like I'd have to go to like a party and, take pictures of glad handing and all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, like but when I was 16, the first thing that I thought I was going to be was a photographer, because my next door neighbor, my next door neighbor was my babysitter when I was younger, but her eventual husband was a guy who went to the School of Visual Arts and was a professional photographer. So when I was old enough to like be hired as somebody to like work weekends, I worked as a wedding photographer assistant from age 16 to 23. Like I had that gig all throughout college, and like in a very like classic way was like an apprentice. Like when I was 16, 17, I didn't even touch the camera. He was like, no, this is what I do, and then I worked myself up to it. So yeah, I mean,
wow, he was a good teacher for a younger guy then. I
appreciate mentorship and education in my own life. Like I enjoyed studying like the art of improv and stuff. But I also like I went back to grad school, and I did continuing ed for like learning computer stuff or learning software. Like I always felt there were positive elements of that like I kept seeking out, because I always had a good experience with it. Yeah.
It's also interesting that your former babysitter became your channel to like another Like, I don't, not babysitter, but another authority figure, another authority figure.
For sure. And even a role model, because like that was a person who was in my like world. It was always like, okay, so you can do this art, but like, can you make money with it? Otherwise it's not valid. And I know that that's like a contested thing, but it's hard to break out of that mindset.
Well, it's also a metric that non-artists use.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like, if you want to be taken seriously by non-artists, it's like you kind of have to show them that you do have value, which is money value. Yeah. Sure.
And so like this guy who was my mentor, he was 13 years older than me. He was like really cool. Like he knew he would always give me albums. Like, we're around the same age. So like he would give me records, like old records. And I was like so happy to have someone who was like, used to go to CBGBs when it was cool, and just like a New York personality that like was like ushering me into this like world of cool. And he went to SVA, and that's the only reason I wanted to go there, because it was like, here, I want to be like this person, like a working artist who's cool. That's like what I thought was like my trajectory.
Yeah. And you're a musician as well, which some people might not know.
Some people might not know. Maybe I'll post more. Like lately, I've been like once in a while I'll put like an acoustic guitar song up on my Instagram.
Oh, I haven't seen any of those. Have you not written any songs for Grading Animals? I'm not pushing you to do anything you don't want to do, but
I covered the one in the Wobbegong episode.
Mm-hmm.
I covered Barrington Levy's "Here I Come." Covered it. It's a classic reggae song. Here I come.
Yeah.
He goes, I covered that, but I changed it to a song about wobbegongs, and I just play it in the beginning. And Marianne was like, "Oh, how come you're not more silly?" Because like the show has such a like it's evolved into having this like seriousness,
right?
But like I do come from clown. I mean, I do come from me from all the iterations of like my comic voice. So Marianne's like, where's that, Kaps?
Oh, right. Well, I mean, this is the year for it not to come out, or the year that it's hard for it to come out. So in addition to Grading Animals, you do, you have a comedic duo, and you and Marianne shoot a lot of video, and you came out with a new project recently. Did you only shoot one episode, and then
we only shot one?
Oh yeah,
we could only afford to shoot one.
Oh yeah,
we wrote the whole script though. So the show Mares and Kaps is a sequel, or like an evolution of Killing It, which you directed the 7th episode of.
Yeah.
And it's all on YouTube. And it was just an idea. We wanted to take the characters that we made and put them on a real journey, a real like hero's journey that lived in its own mythology in the show. Like
it is silly, yeah.
Yeah, but also like it's not in our world. It's in a fictitious version of our world.
Yeah, it's maybe serious performances in a silly world, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. So we made that pilot, and we had finished it like the week before everything. We finished shooting it like the last weekend of February, right before everything shut down. So thankfully we were able to it took 8 months during COVID to edit it.
Yeah.
And it's been well received, and I'm like grateful that we have that, because had the timing been different, it would just be a pipe dream. And I sympathize for all artists who are in that situation.
Yeah.
Something I talk about with like my buddies, who I do my podcasts with and stuff like that, is that like, me being on Long Island, I've always for years had this like, I feel like I have to push harder to like push myself to get on the train and go out to the city or drive in.
Oh, it makes sense.
I could compete in the scene, And I think like maybe like 3 years ago, I like 3 or 4 years when I moved into this space, like I was like, I'm gonna it's so much effort to do that. I waste like 4 hours, doing that. Like, let me just build a set here that I can make the things that I want, and I can take all of that time and just start building it. And it was slow at first because, but now I feel very grateful that I can just, I've been holed up in the pandemic, and I feel like in order to save off and avoid feeling, and living in my own fantasy and avoid feeling is very part of who I am, to like not be engaged with all of the horror. I just throw myself into like my creativity. I try to do that. And like, it's like, I absolutely live like in a delusional state of just like, I don't know what I don't know what day it is. I'm just working on my thing.
Right.
And I'll finish it. And at the diminishing returns of putting something online, and then I'll just start another thing because I don't want to engage with anything real.
Oh, yeah. I understand that whole being disconnected and stuff, because I live in Hell's Kitchen and I have like a view of the city, but when I look out my window, it doesn't look like anything is wrong. You know what I mean? It's just like it's just normal New York. A weird habit I got, because I've been trying to keep creative as well, but one thing I've been doing during downtime, which I never really did before, was I'm watching old game shows. I don't know why, I just zone out to old game shows, and took me a while. It's just sort of like, why am I watching all these reruns of game shows? And I realized, like, one, it's a piece of pop culture that's displaced from now. That's part of the reason. And if you watch like comedy from the 80s, it doesn't hold up sometimes. But this holds up because even though there's moments that people are trying to be funny, there's also just like game show shit they have to pay attention to. So it's like they can't, there's like boundaries for them. I don't know. It was just like a weird.
I think that there would be, I was thinking of when I used to watch like shows like Password. Mm-hmm. And like there's moments of like genuine, in all game shows, of seeing people excited and like the drama of they want to get it and they got it, or they want to get it and they didn't get it. And that's like, I think that's the reason why they're popular at all.
Right. It's game shows is the way for non-performers to be able to perform. I think that is kind of what I realized was why I was zoning in on it. Because there was like real emotion there.
Yeah.
And if you had a non-performer just try to pretend to be on a game show, they'd be all self-conscious. They wouldn't be able to do it.
Totally. Yeah.
And even like a well-trained actor might not be able to act well pretending to be on a game show because it would still feel so ingenuine in a way.
They'd have to be really in the moment. They'd have to have some real stakes of you believe you're going to win a car or some money or something like that.
Right.
Also, the settings of game shows, like I love that before. It's a very funny thing when you look back at like set design from probably like the 50s on. For a long time, they would have like what seemed like a blank set with like maybe a cyc and some lights on it, and then maybe like the wheel or some element. And now it's very designed. Like it's such a spectacular lights and different things like that. But looking back at the old ones, it's like, there's some craft to how these sets look. It's very 70s or 80s. There's something very beautiful about that. I like, having my background with art, like there are certain periods of art that like I keep becoming excited about, like Art Nouveau, had all of these like expressive lines and these crazy curvy lines that like weren't quite modern.
Yeah.
And a lot of that artwork died because those artisans went to World War I and like it was cut out of like existence. Like the people who knew how to do it were dead. And so it's like, it's almost this like beautiful stopping point. And then whenever I look at things, same thing like you're saying about these old shows, there's an aesthetic that like is just, we don't understand why it was.
Yeah.
But it's just gone and it's something different,
Right. Do you know who Ernie Kovacs is? I bet you
a comedy
know the name.
guy. He's an old 50s comedy or early 60s?
Yeah, I think like 50s, maybe the 60s too, but he did live TV, he did like talk shows and stuff, and I think he did game shows too, but he was credited with doing a lot of like innovative things for TV at the time. Yeah. Like stuff like tilting the camera, and then like I think Star Trek got the tilting of the camera and everybody rocking back and forth from like a bit that he did. Like he invented a lot of like weird, and he like shot his own, but one of the last things, he like shot his own commercials and he won awards for like shooting very humorous commercials. But one of the last things I did in like March prior to the pandemic was just very randomly, I saw there was a free thing that the Hungarian Society was putting on. It was like a celebration of the life of Ernie Kovacs. And it was my neighborhood and it was free. So I went. It was me and a bunch of like 70 and 80-year-old people and like a few younger people. But they were gushing over this guy who one person said, nobody alive today knows it, but when Ernie Kovacs died, it was like when Robin Williams passed away. Like the whole country mourned. Like he was that beloved.
Yeah.
But he has like a lot of weird clips available on YouTube and a lot of stuff that was lost too. Like a lot of his stuff was lost because it was just like taped over.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a shame.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a person who I know only through an old friend of mine. When I was like still doing music and still performing, like, you know, I performed when I was like 19, from like 16 to 23, but like really my band years were like 18, 19, 20 to 23.
Yeah.
But like, my friend started doing stand up in the city, you know, like, 1999.
Yeah.
And he, was raised in a, like, almost like a cult, like a Christian cult background.
Yeah.
But one of the things that he did grow up with was Ernie Kovacs. and that was one of his, like, things that he was like, well, this I like.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then he would, like, of course, like, contraband sneak, like he liked Chris Rock and stuff, you know, like everybody, but.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I've always known his name, and he had like a DVD set or like maybe tape set at that time. I don't think it was DVDs yet.
Well, I knew him because I know my father talked about him once in a while. But then I had a video production class in college that the instructor loved this guy, and he even, I think, he was like a teacher. Speaking of mentors, he was a teacher who was very adamant about like learn the model numbers of the cameras you're using, because that will, even if you know the model number and you can go into a job interview and say that I've used Ikegami cameras, like that might give you a leg up on somebody else, you know. But he was just like, everyone should know who Ernie Kovacs is.
That's awesome.
And I guess
they should.
I guess one of the things I learned from that event was that Dave Letterman, his early talk show was seen as innovative and doing a lot of weird stuff. And supposedly the writers would, on their lunch break, go over to the Museum of Television and Radio and watch old tapes of Ernie Kovacs and kind of steal bits.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I do love that. I think that I love knowing that there's some type of respect for the past in artwork. I do love seeing, you know, it's like, you like punk, but do you like the Clash or the Sex Pistols? It's like the Clash. Right. The Clash love jazz and they love rock and they love like music, whereas like the Sex Pistols is like they're just heard about music yesterday and they're just bashing the instruments. They don't really have a love for it.
Some of them don't even know how to play, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I understand the whole sort of like stealing and borrowing and inspiration, you know, because like Stoner Morning Show, there's no way. Like, I grew up watching Strange Brew, like the Mackenzie brothers.
Yeah, yeah.
Or even Wayne's World. And I'm like, there's no way an idea of stoners doing a morning talk show would have come about had it not that it already existed, you know?
Absolutely.
Well, anything that you're hoping to accomplish in the next 2 months? I don't know. I feel like I'm nervous about how December and January are going to be just because...
Oh, you know, the pandemic has been like I lost my job and my life has been like reduced to like a very small space. Mm-hmm. But you know, that did open up an opportunity where I've never been able to be this creative on my own terms.
Yeah.
And it's like something that I've never like been able to fully savor in my life and in my adult life. And a lot of that is because I also was the kind of person where, just like I said, like I worked as a job photographer and like I took the entire responsibility of doing that well. And I tried to like burn the candle at both ends doing my creative stuff, my whole, like ever since you've known me, like I was a high school teacher. I taught video production when we met.
Right.
And then, you know, I had a few, and then I got that gig, you know, where I've been a photographer. And it's like, I've always, now that like, I feel like the world and their value system, in some ways, the pandemic is like a balance to us as animals.
Yeah.
Because humans are to me, just a type of like bacteria or insect that proliferates with no idea where it's coming from or going. Like we can have philosophical conversations in the moment, but like on a macro, like macro scale, whatever.
Yeah.
Zoomed out of the planet, just the bacteria of humans like expanding, accelerating is like, it's like army ants. It's like watching two army ants go at it.
Right.
And this need to do more, double your productivity. We need to fully globalize and be flying. Because I was flying like the weekend before everything happened. After we did Mares and Kaps, I literally was in Pittsburgh, and then I flew to Vancouver for my gig.
Yeah.
And I came back and I had to have my shirt over my face on the plane back because like it was like it happened that quick. COVID.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it's like a global pandemic happening and being not even as bad as it could be.
Right.
You know, I'm like, okay, so now like all of that pushing hard, you can't do it. It's not, it's advised against. So now like I have a very small life where I can be creative and I can put it in, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't really want this to end. I want to live in this as much as possible. Because
that's a good way to approach it. You know, to accept it. Yeah. And enjoy it. It's, I've been up and down with my enjoyment levels. You know what I mean? Yeah, yeah.
And absolutely, I don't want to make it sound like it's been a total pleasure. I mean, I feel like for sure, like I think I hide from glaring things about my personality and like the warped way that like I live. Like for instance, I probably definitely have some type of eating disorder. Like I just will not eat. I don't know, like I'll just be like, I'll eat in the morning and then like I don't know, it's like I'll be like, I don't feel like eating or some weird shit, but whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I don't like set up a lot of things for my own comfort. Like I do. I'll just like be a workaholic over here. And then even if I'll just go to sleep.
Yeah.
Or if I try to watch something, I won't watch something that I'll enjoy. I'll watch something that's too challenging that like it's going to like, but like I'm gonna like have to deal with it.
Oh,
you know?
yeah. I think that's why I started watching game shows, because I was just like, I shouldn't reward myself, but I just need to veg out. Then I found myself getting like really fascinated by them. You know?
Yeah.
Well, I always thought of you as a very charming, wonderful, fun person. So, but yeah, times are rough. Yeah. Don't be too hard on yourself.
Thanks, man. You too.
I know. I should write that down and hang it up somewhere. Don't be too hard on yourself.
Yeah. It's weird. Like, I feel like everyone is, I mean, I didn't think that the world was so, people were jerks and so quick to point out your flaws or exclude you from whatever the little crumbs they had in the old world.
Yeah.
You know? And it sucked. It was not like, it's not like I enjoyed so much of, trying to fucking fit in all the time or whatever, or having to make that, because that's what I think, unfortunately, scenes of any kind, they create spaces where you have to fit into them rather than like your uniqueness. Your uniqueness is never going to get celebrated.
Yeah.
It's always going to be pointed at with guns and like ran out of town.
Right.
So I feel like sometimes like, we do that to ourselves really badly. And I think that the impulse is still there now in this fucked up time.
Right.
Even though like you lack the opportunity to go and like hug somebody that you haven't seen in a while, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember at the start of this, I really thought, when we didn't have any idea how long it was going to be, I was like, I hope this makes us softer to people somehow. I don't know if it will. I've had a few conversations with friends where people are like, no, I think we'll take this for the rest of, take a piece of this with us for the rest of our lives. And then other people will just be like, nah, it's just going to go back to the way it was.
Did you know people when you were younger who lived through the Depression?
My grandmother, my father's mother did. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I remember the way they were and the way they were like, it was a weight that they carried, and it was a way that they were conservative, not politically, but conservative with their resources, and that like it all could come tumbling down at any moment. And it was a unique perspective that I think that this time may give us, it depending on how long it lasts.
Yeah. It might give us a little bit of that just perspective maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, my grandmother was definitely that way. She had a bowl of used soaps.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
in the kitchen and, that kind of stuff. Yeah, we'll see.
Have you, like, here's the thing that, like, so, my girlfriend's, mom is elderly. Mm-hmm. One of the things during this time is, like, a concern toward protecting her from, because she's definitely could easily get it. Yeah. COVID. And also, like, is not super mobile, mm-hmm. So in this time, like we help her out, and we help out with things that like around her apartment and just like, needs. And that feels really good. And it feels really good also. Like I've been like, and all of the stuff, of course, just for the listening audience, like full masks and stuff that, being safe, of course, mm-hmm. but also like I've been spending time, socially distanced, but with my nephew who's 4, my sister's son. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I've been able to like have a relationship with this kid mm-hmm. and see him more. I don't know if if it was normal times, like I'd probably be busy doing so many things, but now like I can put it into my week to go and spend time with this young kid and, be an older person that can play guitar easily and sing a song next to him, or like show him how to draw something, or like just be a presence. And that has been of such value. Both of those things, feeling of service to somebody and being in someone's life without the transactional nature of like, oh, we're working on a project or we're working on a thing that is just for me being with somebody else. Right. Profound. And it's like life changing. And I feel like that's something that has really kept my feet on the ground during this time. Oh, nice. Yeah. That's good. This has been great. Thanks for checking in. Is there anything you want to close with? Jonathan Kaplan of Grading Animals and Mares and Kaps or anything? No. Hey, check out those 2 things. Yeah. And check out all the stuff that you're doing, Sean. Oh, sure. Thanks. And, just be good. Be good to yourself. Be forgiving. Take time to, like, be alone. And that's good. Like one of my favorite people, my favorite characters of literature or like writers mm-hmm. is writer Maria Rilke, like who I live by him. Mm-hmm. And one of his things is like live in your solitude. Like it's a friend to you. Yeah. And I've thought about that a lot. And I think that there's something good in there. Oh, yeah. Awesome.
This has been another excellent episode of Stoner Morning Show. Thanks for listening. Follow us on social media at Stoner Morning Show. Tell your friends. And puff puff past.